my name is Tracy and I work for the West Virginia University Extension Service Family Nutrition Program. And today we are going to be making a tomato, bean, and kale soup. I love this soup in the summertime because it features some of my favorite farmers market items. So before we get started, we always want to make sure to wash our hands for 20 seconds with warm soapy water. Because this recipe has multiple stages, make sure that we clean our hands before we come back into the kitchen between the different parts of the recipe. So I've already washed my hands and I have prepped some of the ingredients ahead of time. So I'm going to show them to you and then give you an idea of how to cut some of the vegetables. So we are going to have a medium onion, a yellow onion. We're going to have one large carrot, one stalk of celery. This is optional, but I love the crunch that it gives us. One Yukon Gold potato, and 2 cloves of garlic minced. We also are going to use 2 tomatoes if you're going to use fresh, or you can use a 14.5-ounce can of diced tomatoes. I'm using the diced tomatoes from the can today. We're going to use 1 can of white or cannellini beans as our protein, and we want to make sure to rinse these beans to drain and then rinse them before we use them. And we're also going to use a 1/2 pound of kale. And I just kind of, like a 1/2 pound is maybe about 2 cups or so of our kale. So we're gonna prep all of that. Now, to get these even shapes of vegetables, which are great for getting all different flavors on our spoon, I go with the French fry method is what I call it. So let me grab a celery stalk. So we're going to cut and discard our ends. And then we're going to do, like I was saying, like a French fry. So we're going to turn this into probably 3 French fries. And this method works for any of these vegetables, the onions, the carrots, the potatoes. I always slice and make big French fries first. So my 1 stalk turned into 3 French fries. And then I'm going to line them up like this. And I'm going to cut them now lengthwise all the way across, trying to keep my cuts pretty consistent. So now we've got our celery all chopped. I'm gonna set that on the side here. This is way more celery than we need for the recipe, but I just wanted to show it to you. And with our kale has this vein that runs down and it's really tough. So I like to pull the stalk off and I go all the way up to the top, pulling as I go, and I discard this part. And you can either tear the kale into small bits, which I kind of find easiest. This is great if kids are helping, they can tear the kale, or you could chop it. Either way is great. So to make our soup, we are going to heat up our pot that we're going to cook in on the stove to a medium-high heat. So I'm going to turn my stove on. And we're going to put oil in the bottom of the pan, just a tablespoon, which I call about 2 rounds of my oil. You can use vegetable oil, olive oil, any of those types of oils you can go ahead and put in there. The first ingredients, we're going to saute our onions, our celery, and our carrots. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. And we want our pan to be hot enough so that when we put it in, it sizzles. This allows the food to start cooking immediately instead of just kind of simmering in the oils and the fats. We want it to be nice and hot. So we should hear a nice sizzle when it goes in. So just the onions, the carrots, and the celery. We're going to stir this with a wooden spoon or a spatula just until they get golden brown. Once our carrots, onions, and celery are golden brown and softened, we're going to add our 2 cloves of minced garlic. We only want this to cook for about 30 seconds until fragrant. And be careful as you add the tomatoes. There's going to be a lot of steam come up out of the pan. So I always pour away from me and try to get my hand out of the way quite quickly. And we're going to cook the tomatoes and continue to cook the vegetables for 5 to 10 minutes. Longer if you're going to need to cook it longer if you're using fresh tomatoes. Because I'm using canned tomatoes, they're already softened, so I won't have to wait quite as long. So we just want this heated through, so for about 5 minutes or so. After that, we're going to add 6 cups of water and our teaspoon of oregano. And you can use fresh or dried. It's a teaspoon if it's dried and a tablespoon if it's fresh. And we're going to stir that and then let that cook until it comes to a boil. Once our soup is boiling, we're going to add in our Yukon Gold potato. Be careful not to splash. Get all that goodness in there. And then you're also going to add 2 tablespoons or 2 sprigs actually of coarsely chopped rosemary. I'm using fresh. I just got it right off the stalk. And this is going to be really fragrant. And we're going to cook for about 10 to 15 minutes until those potatoes become tender. Go ahead and put the lid on. And we're going to let that cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. Once our potatoes are tender, we're going to add in our chopped kale. The kale is going to turn a beautiful, bright green. It smells so good. We're going to let that cook for about 5 more minutes, 5 to 10 more minutes, and then we can add our can of rinsed white beans. We'll stir and cook about 5 more minutes until the beans are heated through, and then we can serve. I love to serve this. It's great on a rainy day in the summertime, or really any time. This soup is so delicious and has so many wonderful flavors. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen. I hope you enjoy your tomato, bean, and kale soup. Have a wonderful day.